Oh, we are getting divisive on this episode. Teams we love to sports hate. We asked, you answered. We talk about it right now on the Three Technique.
One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Yes, indeed. Teams you love to sports hate. That's the subject of today's episode, along with Garrett Turney. I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for tuning in. Another edition of the Three Technique, a college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Garrett, it is baseball season around the country. We've got opening day coming up, but that hasn't stopped us from continuing to put out college football content. And it was an interesting topic that I posed to our Twitter and Instagram audiences the other day at 3Tech Pod. If you're not already following there, you can and join the conversation. But I wanted to know, which teams do you specifically watch because you hate them, because you're praying for their downfall? Watching them lose just brightens up your day. I feel like we get a lot of that around March Madness time, a lot of your rivals losing, right? But specifically for college football, I knew this was going to be kind of a hot topic, right? And specifically over on Instagram, a lot of folks answered. Uh, First question: do you sports hate watch, and why, if you do?
Of course I sports hate watch because that's half of sports, right? Because, when we thought about this show topic, the first thing I was thinking was, oh, that's an interesting conversation. We're about to go tell a bunch of people we hate their team. And look, realistically, if you're a sports person, you get it because as much as you love to watch your team win, right? You wake up, you wear the colors, you get ready, you know everything about the matchup. You're ready to watch, oh, this defensive end he's got a hurt ankle, so he's not going to be able to go around the edge. So maybe we can, and you start to think about that stuff, right? But then, it's even more fun. And I dare to say it, but I think it is a little bit more fun to go and watch that team that's your rival that you hate a little bit. And you're just like, no, come on, let's just root for their downfall. One of their guys gets, crack coming over the middle, and you're like, yes. And you're like, no, I don't want to hurt him. But, there's something that feels good about watching their guys get hit a little bit hard. And so, yeah, of course, I'm sports hate. It's part of sports. It's a thing that, when you think about the entire experience of watching sports, a big part of it is love and a big part of it is hate. And specifically in college football, I think that's emphasized because so much of college football is just you and your rival, right? There's so much passion in it. And there's people that you went to high school with that went off to those other colleges, and you're like, you guys, you don't understand, you guys are at the wrong college, stuff like that. And so it kind of turns into a fun sort of back and forth thing that you carry with you, and you have a little bit more of a fealty to it since you're I'm in allegiance with my college. I went to that place. I'm actually a part of this. We love professional sports, obviously. I mean, I got a little, Rangers action over here and, a couple places like that. But college football is just a different breed at a certain point. You just hate a little bit more. You love a little bit more. And that's part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, we all know that we love to watch our rivals lose. And that was actually one thing that when I put this out to the Jimmies and the Joes, I wanted to know, okay, besides your rival, right? So if you're a Michigan fan, you love to watch Ohio State lose, obviously.
Sure.
We're Aggies. We love to watch Texas struggle, of course. That comes with the territory, right? But are there other schools or their national brands that you just, something about it, man, you just tune in and you love to watch them lose? And ironically enough, a team that we had talked about, hey, where are their fans? Like, we need to hear from their fans. They came up the most, and that was the Miami Hurricanes, who it felt like they haven't been relevant in a little bit. And as much as we've kind of said, okay, we need to hear from Hurricanes fans, people that tune in every single week, people that are at Hard Rock Stadium, all 12 of you, each and every week. We want to know why you tune in? What makes you tick? Why do you support the Hurricanes? And ironically, we heard more from folks that say, man, I just love watching Miami lose, whether that be Florida, Florida State, etc. But even folks from outside of the Sunshine State loving to watch Miami lose. To me, that's what this really like. That's pure sports hate watch, right? You don't really have a connection to that program, but man, when you turn them on, you just kind of love to see their downfall. And I'll say this: Miami's created some great memes over the years. I mean, gosh, not kneeling and icing the game against
Yup.
Georgia Tech. That really helped those of us in the content world to generate stuff for a week, a month, an off season.
Now, we still talk about the fact that they don't know. I think I brought it up on the
Last
off-season
episode,
winners episode, right? Here's the thing, like they are a winner of the off-season. We don't necessarily look at Miami
sure.
and just hate the program irrationally, but let's be honest, like there just kind of is something about Miami that makes the rest of college football tick a little bit, and certain fan bases a lot more than others. And a couple of those, obviously, you think like a Oklahoma, Nebraska, you think like a Notre Dame, some of those teams that had to compete with them at the national level back when they were relevant.
Hmm.
But it's not just them. It seems like there's still just kind of that air. And this is kind of the thing that I think we'll end up talking about a lot. There's sort of an attitude that goes around with certain fan bases. It might be a player that just everyone remembers hating, right? You think in like the basketball area, like Duke has some players, right? And Leitner and
Sure.
all them, being able to hate on a player. So you kind of hate, that program. And I think there's going to be a lot of different factors for a lot of the teams we talk about today, but man, Miami, they just got a sort of air about them, like there's still something when they haven't really been relevant in, I don't know, 20, 25 years. Like they've had some good seasons. Like every, power program's bound to have a good season every now and then. You put enough seniors on the roster at the same time, you get the right quarterback in place, the ball bounces the right way, you're going to have a good season. But
Sure.
like Miami still seems to think that they're like the hot stuff. And realistically, like the only thing that's hot about Miami is the weather. Quite literally, there's nothing really going on. That their fan base isn't extremely hot. Like you said, there's like 12 people maybe that show up to their game every week, and like you get a big crowd from out of town, and they have to share a football stadium with an NFL team, and it's just a whole other thing, right? Where that's a whole sideshow to the Miami thing. But yeah, it just kind of seems like there's an air that goes around to them. And also, let's be honest, like the 30 for 30 does brand them the criminals. I mean, there's a certain attitude of I
True.
don't like those guys. Those are the bad guys. They kind of brought it on to themselves, right? They kind of
Hmm.
took that mantra, we'll be the bad boys, we'll be the ones that are kind of breaking the rules and bust me a little harder and all stuff like that. And yeah, that's a factor in it. That's something you can't ignore when you talk about teams that you hate watch. So yeah, you take the criminals, you take the guys who still think they're the hot stuff, you put them up in the college football world. Yeah, you're probably not going to like very much of what they have to do.
I think those are good points. Certainly, when you've talked so much trash, and even if you have a championship pedigree, folks are geared towards wanting to root against you anyway. Because for Miami, for USC, who's a team on this list, you get to a certain level of success and everyone's wanting something different, and then once you no longer have that success, there are a lot of receipts that people tend to go find, right? There are a lot of past malfeasances that we as football fans want to pay off, and so all of a sudden someone who is living the high life, they're in the unemployment line, and everyone is all too happy to remind them that they're there. That
Yep.
those glory days, hey, you want to live in the past? That's great, man. But we're living in the here and the now, and your team's not up there on that pedestal. I think that's a big motivation for why teams hate watch other teams. Miami, USC is another one, man. Yeah, I think we can talk about USC for a second. And listen, this isn't
Yeah.
just about the program. I think this is about the head coach. I think this is about the drama and the circus that surrounded their quarterback over these last couple of seasons. And you know what? Now, Garrett, I mean, bringing in a little bit of news here, they just took a commitment from a very talented kid, but also a kid who quite literally pulled a prank that could have been lethal to a high school teammate of his. And there have been no actual legal ramifications from that. USC is clearly saying it's not a big issue, whereas other schools like his in-state schools are pulling scholarship offers and not letting him pass go. Do not collect $200 when he
Right.
comes to an official visit. Schools canceled official visits. Listen, for USC, didn't go well last year. I think there's a big case, and we've made the case that Lincoln Riley is a very overrated coach. He's a great offensive system installer, but maybe not a great head coach. USC's very, very high on the list of teams that we like to sports hate, according to you, the fans.
Yeah, well, and the thing about USC is they kind of have a merging of two of the different factors. It is kind of the aura like Miami has, but it really is the head coach too. And if
Oh,
you
it's
think
so
about the
unlikable.
circumstances under which he left Oklahoma, right? Because he was the guy that came in, after Stoops had his legendary thing. He was supposed to be the next guy to carry the mantle, right? He's kind of like how Ryan Day was at Ohio State, where you're the next guy in and you're going to kind of keep this thing going. You're going to, even though this coach is leaving and he's calling it quits, he's hanging it up. This is your program now. Except it's maybe even worse than the situation at Ohio State because Stoops had been there for so much longer and was so much more entrenched and really built Oklahoma into something massive. And Riley takes it. He does a good job with it. He keeps the offense going and maybe even takes it up a notch. And, they put a couple Heisman Trophy quarterbacks in the league and make a couple playoffs and don't really have much success there. And in the middle of the night, just decides, you know what, I'm just going to take off and not really give a lot of explanation why. And,
Mm.
it kind of felt like his whole, like, well, I'm not going to LSU. That was a real, like, I got you on a technicality there. I'm
Guys, I
not going
promise
to
I'm not going to
LSU.
LSU.
Right, one of those, like, and so it's if it's a situation where your former team is referring to you not so lovingly as Tebow, and I'll spare the acronym, you can go look it up, but Oklahoma fans refer
Yes.
to Tebow. um I don't know that that's something that you would necessarily count in the tally of your character. And so I'm I'm not going to defend Lincoln Riley here, but also it's all the other stuff. It's the Hollywood, it's the we're the school in LA, so we're kind of the big flashy, right? And we're doing all that. So there's the mentality of like, it's the fancy on the West Coast type of team. And a lot of that comes along too, like, the whole Caleb Williams thing. Like, he's a really, really great player, but there are some off the field dramatic issues where there was sort of an air that he felt like he was better than some people. And that certainly got noticed by people. And so, like, I'm not here to trash on necessarily one person or the other, but when you have a lot of people with a similar sort of it's my way or the highway mentality, yeah, people are going to hate watch, especially when you can't end up converting on some of those expectations and you seem to look a little overrated, right? If you look a little big for your britches, it's a lot, worse than if you're just talking a lot of crap and then backing it up.
I think USC for me became one of those teams that you watch and you wait to see them fall below expectations, which they've done a number of times over the last decade. But it really
Oh yeah.
started back in 04, 05, right? They beat Oklahoma, they win the national championship, and then they reload and go for the Rose Bowl against Texas, and obviously Vince Young carries the Longhorns to a championship there. For me, that's my first memory of everyone else against USC. Like no one in the country was rooting for USC that night.
Hmm.
Everyone was hoping, oh, can Texas upset the Trojans and pull off a stunner? And obviously, we got an all-time classic, and the Longhorns did end
Yep.
up winning that championship. Those kind of experiences are what stick with me for some of these teams. That it's like, you know what? Like I was just kind of groomed to not like from a core memory. I was just kind of groomed to not like you, to always rooting
Yeah.
against you. That's
Well,
one
and
thing that I love about college sports.
even at the time, like, Pete Carroll wasn't a super likable head coach. It wasn't like he was just sitting there like, oh, he's the good guy, and he has that kind of like work hard sort of mentality. And he was kind of just like a little bit of and I dare to say it, but a little diva esque at the time. Even then, with what was going on at USC, I still think he's a really good coach, and I think he's one of the best we've seen. Obviously, he had a lot of success in the NFL as well, but there was kind of that mentality as well. And if you want to go even further, it wouldn't matter anymore. But Reggie Bush did have his problems with following the rules and incentives and everything else. And look, in today's college football, who cares, right? That's what it is. And everyone was doing it back then anyways. And so whatever. But there just really is still that mentality of like, these guys are a little bit scummy, a little bit cheater, a little bit think that they're better than us. And that's going to play when it comes to, hate watching a fan base or hate watching a team.
I will say though, Reggie Bush deserves his Heisman back, especially given
100%.
everything that's going on right now.
100%.
And I'll say this: some folks that might be able to give Reggie his Heisman back, at least in the form of a T-shirt, are our friends over at HomefieldApparel.com, the good brand, making all the best college apparel. Right now, it's basketball season, baseball season going on as well. Get you some of that if you want to rep your team all the way through the Final Four. HomefieldApparel.com. They can get you outfitted, and you can get a sweet 15% off by using our code at 3TechPod. You can also visit the link in our bio, Instagram and Twitter. If you are a return customer, which I know so many of you are, you can use that link to get the discount, help support the show, even if you have bought from them before. So first-time users, 3TechPod gets you 15% off. Otherwise, use the link in our bio. Get some of the best college merch in the world from the good brand, HomefieldApparel.com. We talked about USC. We've talked about Miami. Other teams on this list. Again, teams that we love to hate watch, curated by you, the listener, or the watcher on YouTube. Thank you for watching. We just passed 500 subscribers over on YouTube, actually, by happenstance. Ohio State, Auburn, and Tennessee also found their way on this list. They're a team that you have a particular persuasion towards?
I think the one that raised my eyebrow the most was Auburn because, again, outside of the head coach, like they're kind of, I feel like they're kind of a rootable team. I feel like you can kind of root for those guys. And maybe I'm a little biased. I do have a little Auburn hat sitting on my shelf over here. And, I do have some family on that side of the, my mom's side that's some Auburn fans. So I get that. But, maybe it's just that. I don't know. But Alabama's been the bad guy at college football for a while. And if you think about like kick six and some of the miracles and some of these like real punches that Auburn's thrown, I feel like you can't be too mad at the guy who's kind of gotten Alabama the most the last, decade and a half. So, they put a couple champions up. Maybe you don't like Cam Newton. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know why you wouldn't like Cam Newton. He's a fun player to watch. But, I just kind of think outside of the head coach, which I get it, there's some issues with the current head man at Auburn. But outside the head coach, I don't really know what you can complain about Auburn football. It's kind of a fun to watch team, and they got a nice uniform. Their fans their fans are kind of loud, but they also have probably the hardest schedule every single year since they played Bama and Georgia on the yearly, just as a rivalry game thing. So I don't know, man. I feel like Auburn's getting a little bit unfairly hated. Ohio State and Tennessee, I get a little bit more because those are teams that. When you look at like the Buckeyes, they've obviously been relevant for a long time. They've been really good for a long time. They've certainly given a lot of people problems for a very long time. So that makes sense. And Tennessee kind of has that, but in more of a historical way. I know they haven't been as good the last like 10 years or so, but they've still been a solid team and a solid program. And especially the last couple of years, you really see things starting to kick back up again. And man, like historically, man, Tennessee just made so many enemies. They were just so dominant and so good for a while. So I do get hate watching Tennessee because they definitely socked it to some people. But, I just don't get the Auburn hate, if I'm being honest.
I tell you where I side with the people on hate watching Tennessee. Nothing against the university, nothing against their athletic department. But that fight song, man, that is the hate towards Rocky Top is real. I understand if you're inside the walls of Knoxville, you love it. If you're not, it is the most. I'll say this: it is the second most obnoxious fight song I've heard in person, outside of Boomer Sooner.
Oh my gosh, I knew it was coming.
that one tops the charts for me. I have a traumatic experience. I was at the number 1, number 2 Oklahoma Texas Tech matchup back in 2008. Oklahoma proceeds to hang a 60 burger on the Red Raiders, and I was sitting right above I don't even know what Oklahoma calls their band, but it was. I think my brain is still echoing that fight song. So Rocky Top, it's up there for me as well. I understand wishing that they would stop scoring, so you stop hearing the fight song, right?
Absolutely. No more. And that really is like that song really is like if you're in, you love it, and if you're not in, you hate it. Like that really is one of those. So like Tennessee fans, They're gonna come here. No, I love Rocky Top. No, we get it. I know that you love Rocky Top. That
Right.
makes a lot of sense. And
We know that you love it.
no, it's y'all's thing. Like, y'all have your thing. Don't let us tell you not to like your thing. We're just telling you that we don't really like your thing.
Listen, I just, we hear it all the time. You play
Although I
it
will say
all the
one thing
time.
that we missed on, and I love it as a concept, but it has become kind of an overplayed thing. The Florida State, like that gets overplayed.
Yeah,
Like,
but everyone does that. Like,
no, I know, but it's just like the only, like, you don't hear him do a whole lot more than that. It's like, all right, it's
that's true.
1st and 10, and let's go. Little slant route picks up 7.
There is a great EA College Football 25 meme that's like the chum bucket from SpongeBob,
Mhm.
and when they're playing the band blows out the windows. It's like Florida State every time they pick
It's
up a
truly,
first down. Yeah,
it's truly. I
so
like it. I just wish they would tone it down a little bit more. Like, every first down, great. Maybe for touchdowns, awesome. If it's a
right.
big play, interception, cool. Just like a little bit down, right?
Totally get it. Well, let us know who you love to sports hate watch. Who'd we miss? Who would you add to this list? Who will you actively be rooting against come this fall? We'd love to hear from you. Invite you to join the conversation at 3TechPod on Instagram and Twitter. If you're finding us on the podcast side, if you are on YouTube, let us know down in the comments. We appreciate you subscribing. And we're looking forward to continuing this conversation. For Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Shorter episode tonight. We'll be back soon. We've got another mini episode right around the corner. So we'd invite you to subscribe for that. And until next time, so long, everybody.
Gracious him. How about